Celtic find themselves bang in the middle of a busy schedule. It's going to be 4 games in 10 days by the time this runs over. And next up is Dundee on Wednesday night at Celtic Park. Here to review this one with me is Brydo. Brydo, your thoughts ahead of this game?
Good afternoon, Tino. I'm just, again, looking forward to hopefully a convincing win. Tomorrow night, I think we're in a good spot. Dundee struggling a wee bit. And yeah, I just think hopefully get a convincing win before, if every game's big, but arguably a couple of bigger games coming up.
Do you think we're going to see a lot of squad rotation? It's not something Brendan Rodgers is famed for, but we've got 3 games across 3 different competitions coming up. So Dundee here on Wednesday is a league game. You've got the League Cup semi-final against Aberdeen at Hampden on Saturday, in your Champions League against Leipzig on Tuesday night. Different players may be required for different challenges, but do you see him chopping and changing a lot over these next few games?
Depends what we mean by a lot, because we've seen him doing a lot for the Falkirk game, and we just looked all over the place, and it's not something that he's really known for doing, as you said earlier. But I've written my team down that I think that he'll play on Wednesday as opposed to the team that I would want to play on Wednesday. I'm picking the team that I think he'll play, and I think he'll put in certainly changes from the weekend. So rotation, yeah, I think you'll also, it's more about not risking players that he really, really needs in the big games. So, Carl McGregor, Carter Vickers in particular. And then maybe even like say Bhoys, if he took him off, will he give him a rest because of his performance, if he thinks that he is your number 3, if you like, at left back. So, and maybe he wants to get some legs into Greg Taylor that he's not got in, just in case. So, and also maybe even like Kyogo and stuff like that. Will he rest him? Will he not? So, yeah, I think from when we go through the team, you'll see that. But I don't think he likes doing it. I don't like him doing it, if I'm being honest. But he does need to rotate because it's the intensity of the games, especially the Champions League ones. And a semi-final against a good Aberdeen team, it's not going to be easy for sure.
Yeah, tough games coming up. Just in terms of availability, Brydo, so I was listening to Brendan Rodgers' press conference earlier. The one guy who's most likely to miss out is Adam Ida. I think he's in a protective boot as we speak. He was getting a scan today, and they were hoping to find out the results of that scan at some point today. So Brendan Rodgers, he was kind of pushed on it, and he says, we're not ruling him out just yet, but we'll have more information soon. I wouldn't expect he would make it. Just very quickly though, I thought it was a really crude challenge going into the, heading towards the 90th minute from a game that was completely dead in the water. Celtic were coasting at 3-0, nothing in it for Motherwell. What do you make of the challenge from, is it Liam Gordon that made it?
Yeah, Gordon made it. Clearly, he's obviously been a frustrated player during the game. And we know that happens when you're getting beat. And, it got to the stage it was relatively convincing. But what he done was really, really cowardly. It's a cowardly tackle. It's cheap. If he wants to take Ida on, in a challenge in the air or, have a bit of hustle and bustle, nobody's got a problem with that. I'll put a fair tackle in, and let him know he's there and all the rest of it. No issue with that at all. I think that's kind of not in the game enough. But it's the way you can... Me and my brothers were talking about when we watched it afterwards. It's like you can actually see him changing the direction of his ankle or his foot in order to make contact with Ida's ankle. He actually changes, he turns his foot away from the ball to make contact. So this argument that his foot was low and whatever else, it's all the garbage. It's as straight a red you'll see, because he's deliberately went out to hurt the player. And I seen a still image of it, and Ida's foot is actually underneath, like bent underneath. I mean, so if he's back within 2 weeks, I think we're lucky. So if he's certainly back within a week, or I don't think he's going to be ready by the sounds of what you're saying, but even if he's ready for the weekend, I think we're lucky, because it could quite easily have been a real bad one. And I don't take any argument from anybody that says that it's nothing short of cowardly and just atrocious, really.
Yeah, I seen Stuart Kettlewell was asked in the aftermath of the game, and he said, he thought it was harsh and words of that nature. Brendan Rodgers was then asked about that response today, and he said that he'd like to think that, after a game, a manager's busy, he's got to go and address his own players, he's got media stuff, there's a whole host of things going on, and he maybe didn't see the angle that we all seen. But when you do see it slow down, it's particularly grim. As you say, his ankle ends up at 90 degrees. It's a horror tackle. And I think you're right. I think if we see Adam Idah in the next few weeks, it's a bonus, because it's the kind of tackle that could put players out of the game for a long time. And it just seemed wholly unnecessary at that stage of the game. Anyway, let's see. Fingers crossed for him. Hopefully he gets good news from his scan. Let's crack right on with the team, Brydo. So some early comments. Gypsy King, good to see him. And P. McLaughlin in the comments just now. Gypsy King thinks we should be going with the same team as Sunday. Would you be happy enough to see that same lineup? The suggestion from Rodgers is that Callum McGregor, I'm going to read between the lines, I don't think he makes it. He says if he doesn't make this one, he'll be okay for Saturday. And he seemed to be speaking in similar tones about Carter Vickers. He said it was good to get minutes against Motherwell, but there's not much training goes on at this time. It's pretty relentless in terms of games. I think you would see Carter Vickers on the bench, and I don't think you'll see Callum McGregor in the squad. Based on that, and we've obviously covered Adam Idah, what do you think? Same lineup or any changes?
I think there might be a change at left back if Greg Taylor's fit. I think he might just put Greg Taylor back in to get minutes in his legs, with the kind of pretense that Bhoys will be the player starting against Aberdeen. He might want to just keep Bhoys' kind of momentum going, of course. And I think if we're all being honest, Bhoys kind of came in, and I think he's taken his chance when Taylor's been injured. That's what happens in football. We've seen it when Kieran Tierney broke through. I think it was Izagiri got an injury, and before you know it, you've got a player who comes in, grabs a jersey and doesn't let it go. So that's what happens. You've got to be ready for your opportunity, and I think Bhoys done that. So if he's playing and he'll play again on Saturday or whatever else, then so be it. But I just think he might just put Taylor in just to get some minutes in his legs. And Engels didn't start at the weekend, so I think he might start. Engels, and Bernardo might drop out for that.
Yeah, I think Engels comes back in. We'll get to the midfield just shortly, but I think Engels does come back in. He was rested, and it's been a lot of games in a short space of time for a young player coming to a new country. I think it was right to rest him, given the opportunity, but I also think he comes right back in ahead of what are really big games. No disrespect to the Dundee one we're covering here, but Saturday's massive against Aberdeen at Hampden, and likewise Tuesday against Leipzig. I put an article out earlier, Brydo, about the centre-half position. 3 into 2 doesn't go at this moment in time. As I say, I don't think Carter Vickers, he cannot be fully fit at this moment in time. Physically he might be fit, but in terms of being up to speed with the game, he can't be based on 25 odd minutes at Fir Park. But when they're all back and good to go, if we had a cup final tomorrow, I'll ask you, but I've asked the lads on Monday night, everybody fit. Who's your 2 out of the 3?
It's Scales, it's Scales and Carter Vickers. And Paddy needs to stay off the glue if he thinks that Rodgers is playing 3-5-2. I listened to it in the car this morning. I was like, come on, Paddy. He's playing 3-5-2 at any stage. Absolutely no chance. Because Trusty's been brought in, you need options there. So because he's had a couple of good games. And if we're actually being honest, Trusty had a couple of iffy moments at the weekend, just with dodgy touches and passes back to the goalie that he had to then rescue himself, which he did. Don't get me wrong, he recovered for himself, but he's not. He had a fantastic game against Atalanta. I just think that anybody that's thinking that Trusty would play over Scales is overlooking a lot of factors. The fact that we've all been critical of Scales, and we've all then thought that there's a ceiling and he was doing a job to cover until we got a reasonable and then better version of him to come in. Since that point, and really since he's came in, with the occasional bad pass and all that, we understand that perhaps on the ball that he's got a bit of limitations. He's there every game, he's fit every game, and I can't remember the last time he caused a goal. I can't remember the last time he had such a negative performance. Even in some games, I said after one of the games, I felt like he was actually holding that defence together at points.
Yeah.
We take him out the team for the Falkirk game, and he's one of the players, of course, of the 4 that get removed in defence. And the defence was all over the place. I just think he's a natural defender. He puts his body on the line wherever he has to. He wins his headers. He scored a couple of goals. So to me, I just think it's not disrespectful. That's what we're here to do. But I just don't think there's any reason why Scales gets removed from his position at all at this minute in time.
I'd agree with you on that. And we've all said often enough over the last, say, 12 months or so, he's got a mistake in him. I've not seen it for a long time, as you say. And I think it's okay to say that, he potentially has that moment, but he's not had that lapse in concentration now for a long time in Celtic's defence. And actually, I thought he may have reached a ceiling at the end of the season past. He's kicked on again this season to new levels. He's getting man of the matches in Champions League games. He's scoring for Ireland. He's doing a pretty good job just now. So let's see how that continues. It is a call for the manager to make. I agree with you. I think it's CCV and Scales. But he's got a decision because you've shelled out $6 million for Trusty. You've gone to your board and asked them to spend that money. You might need to make a decision at some point. But that's up to Brendan Rodgers. That's his job. Let's kick on to the midfield. Before we do, some good comments coming in from Gypsy King, P. McLaughlin, Chris, etc. Just a heads up for anyone who is watching the live on YouTube just now, you do need to be subscribed to the channel to make comments. Easy done. Click the subscribe button and then you can crack away and send us any comments or questions between now and the next 20 minutes or so. Brydo, on that midfield, like you've suggested, I do think Arne Engels comes back in. I've tongue-in-cheek as such named this episode the Luke McCowan Derby. Ahead of this game, he returns to the club where he was captain not so long ago. But I don't think Brendan Rodgers gets caught up in sentimentality. And he was asked again, will Luke McCowan start, given what he took his chance at the weekend? And he was, not dismissive, but he said not necessarily. I don't think because it's his old club, Brendan Rodgers just puts you back in. However, it wouldn't quite be on sentimentality. He's also done pretty well in a Celtic shirt so far, Luke McCowan. And if he got his start, I would say that he's deserved it. But do you think he stays in? And what's your 3 overall for this one?
Yeah, I think McCowan definitely stays in. We made the prediction that he would probably get a start at the weekend. And although he started, it was through default, really. He wasn't going to start. But he definitely deserved it. And again, through bad luck for somebody else, it's good luck for him. And I just think that any time he's put a Celtic jersey on, he's impacted the games in a positive way. He's got a couple of goals. He's been involved in wee intricate passes. He seems to see a pass that perhaps not the rest of them find and not the rest of them try to do. So he offers something different. And he is playing for, I'm not saying he's playing for his Celtic future because that sounds like a negative connotation, but he's playing because when he gets his chance, he's all in. He's all in. He's going to be busy. He's going to demand the ball and he's going to try and make sure he impacts the game as he has done. So for me, he definitely deserves a start in another 90 minutes or so, or certainly 60 or 70 minutes. And I think Engels and Hatate would be the ones I'd put beside him. And Engels has played that deep midfield role before, and I would probably put him in there and take Bernardo out. That would be my change to the middle 3.
Yeah, I'm slightly different. I'm on the same page as P. McLaughlin. He says he thinks it'll be the 3 summer signings in midfield on Wednesday, which would be Bernardo, Engels and Luke McCowan. I think, although he had a wee bit of a shaky start from what I've seen, but I think Bernardo sitting at the base of the midfield is an interesting one. I think he's quite rangy, Brydo. I think he covers ground pretty well, and I think he offers that defence. Generally speaking, we've covered this a number of times now, as recently as Monday. It's any 3 from 5 when Callum McGregor's fit and available, and you're okay with that. Whatever 3 the manager goes with just now, they've all got slightly different skill sets, but they can all slot into what's a pretty exciting midfield and lots of genuine competition there. There are some suggestions, just quickly, about maybe resting Alistair Johnson. He obviously put in a real shift against Atalanta, and again at the weekend, captain at the weekend, Brydo. And that in itself, I think, is the reason why he wouldn't be rested, because if you take Alistair Johnson out and Carter Vickers doesn't start and Callum McGregor doesn't start, I think you need a leader in there, and I think there's leaders generally across the park. I don't think you want to remove too many of them, and I think for that reason, as much as anything, Alistair Johnson stays in, and he's in goal-scoring form, no less. He's obviously got his goal there with the header, so I think he stays in, but obviously it's a valid question. Up top, we don't have the luxury, by the sounds of it, of Adam Idah, so Kyogo would start there. We've seen a rare start for James Forrest, so I don't know if Gypsy King's keen for that to remain the case, or if Nicholas Kuhn comes back in alongside Dies Maeda. Who's your wingers, Brydo?
I think it'll be Kuhn and Maeda. I think they'll come back in. And, Dundee have not had a great start to the season, for those that are aware of their position and the results. but we still need to treat them with respect. And I think just in that front three, we need to blow them away early. I'd really, really love for us to be in a position that we could then take players off and really use the squad to get minutes and legs, rest some people, and then just be in a kind of prime position for the big games at the weekend and the midweek. So you've got to earn that right, of course. And I just think that it's not really a game for anybody else but our best in that final third. And that final third would be Kuhn, Maeda, and Kyogo. I actually had Ida written down. I actually completely blanked the fact that he got that injury, not thinking that. So I'd read somewhere that I thought that it was going to be okay, but so that therefore it would be obviously Kyogo in there. So, and we all know what he can do. And I think he needs a couple of goals, actually. You know, yeah. I know that he's still doing his bit, but you know, one of those games where he can try and get 2 or 3 goals in the 90 minutes, hopefully. But Kuhn, Maeda, and Kyogo would be the 3 up front for me. But obviously the boys on the bench.
Yeah, I'll check the stats at some point. Celtic have now played 14 games. I'm sure that's a tally for the season. What would that be? 9 league games, 2 League Cup games, and 3 Champions League games now. So that's the 14. And I think for the vast majority, it's been that front 3 that you've called: Kuhn, Kyogo, and Maeda. He might rotate to give Maeda a break. I don't think Maeda needs or wants a break. He's just that kind of guy. And there is a curveball suggestion from GJS in the comments. He thinks BR, Brendan Rodgers, might surprise us all and go with Palma and Forrest as the wide 2. I would disagree on that for now. I think it will be the front 3 that you've mentioned, Brydo. But Luke Palma's an interesting one. Some guys like him, some guys don't. I do like him. I think he's got something about him. I can see you smirking, but we'll get to that in a minute. But Brendan Rodgers seems to be persevering with him. He's given him minutes. He brought him on against Atalanta, huge game. And that wasn't a game to go on and score and show your flair. That was a game to go on and dig deep and win important throw-ins, which he done, and a few other things. He also got minutes again at the weekend. And as much as some fans seem to have written him off, Brendan Rodgers doesn't seem quite so sure. And I'd like to hear where you're at with it, Brydo, because he is keen to give him minutes and let him, give a chance to impress.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was the Falkirk game that was it was hooked, and that was when you heard the shouts of he should never wear a Celtic jersey again and all that. Probably a bit knee-jerk. I think Palma has a skill set that's fine in a certain style of team. He is comfortable on the ball. He's relatively strong on the ball. I think he's got good delivery, and I think he's got ability to score goals. We've seen that in the Champions League, of all places. He seemed to look better in those games, probably because the teams he's playing against weren't sitting in that kind of low block, sitting deep. And the way to penetrate them is to get to the byline. And I don't think he's got that burst of pace to get to the byline. I think he always tucks inside on his right foot. And that then in turn really impacts other players' games, because he's then invading in the space of your midfielders like Hatate, would be Engels, McCowan, Bernardo, whoever's in there. He's then too close to them, and he's then not an out ball. So in a complete opposite, Maeda has got chalk on his boots. He gets the ball and he can beat that man with relative ease, and it drives teams back. If you're a fullback playing against Palma, you know he's not getting in behind you, so you can press really high and tight against him. And I think that's when we're playing against teams like that, he finds it difficult. And I just feel like he's just not got enough to be that positive impact on a Celtic team for me. I think now he's rightfully the third, so we've got 2 wingers at start. I think we're really light in that area. I think we said I said earlier on in the season, I think we needed another winger in. Even with James Forrest's performance at the end of last season, I still felt like Maeda and Kuhn, and let's be honest, Kuhn has, I'm not going to say surprised us, but he has performed to a level that we didn't maybe think he was going to. So with Kuhn and Maeda, Forrest is floating around. Yang, is there more question marks over Yang than there was before? I don't know. Palma, we've seen having some absolute shockers, so there's definitely question marks there. So and Forrest, we don't know if he can do it consistently for 90 minutes, for example. So I think we are light in that position. and we've got to really look after those two players, as in Kuhn and Maida. And that's why I wanted to get the job done, and that would be the players I would take off. And Palma would be the one I'd put on, don't get me wrong. But I think if we are in the position of putting him on, then I think that we're not in a great spot in that position, because I don't think he offers enough.
I can understand and pretty much agree with all of that. I just think if guys like Palma and or Yang are going to have a future at Celtic, maybe this kind of game against Dundee, a pretty struggling Dundee at Celtic Park, is where they might be given opportunity. I don't think Brendan Rodgers, as I say, gives out game time for nothing. Sentimentality doesn't come into it, and you don't get any minutes if you don't deserve them and earn them. And I think we might see, whether it's from the start or not, that is a big question, but I do think we might see, certainly Palma at some point. Yang does seem to be a bit further down the pecking order, but we'll see. You talk about Louis Palma's lack of pace, and you're not wrong when it comes to that. Let me tell you a story about a little-known footballer called David Beckham, who played on the wings. Now, not to compare the two at all, but Beckham made a career out of not getting to the byline. That wasn't his game. But what he was good at was delivering early. He often didn't take on the fullback. He would get to that kind of maybe in line with the 18-yard box or even a bit further back. But he had that whipped and exceptional delivery. Now, as I say, no comparison there. Beckham's delivery was high quality. But you don't necessarily have to have the pace and be that guy that gets to the byline to have an impact on games. I think James Forrest has adapted his game. Notably, he's lost that yard of pace. He's still lively, but he's lost that yard of pace that gets him to the byline. But what he does is he retains the ball very well. He pops it about in wee triangles and he creates opportunity from those areas. And I think Louis Palma could potentially do something of that nature. And it offers a difference to, or an alternative to what Kuhn and Maida do, because Kuhn and Maida both get pace to burn. You might have seen the stat, actually. Champions League stats are out for the first 3 games. And I think Nicholas Kuhn is in the top 10 for fastest players in the tournament, ahead of Daizen Maida, based on the input they've brought to the tournament so far. Anyway, I'm going off topic, but what I'm saying is different players for different jobs, and Louis Palma can potentially adapt his game in certain ways that he doesn't have to get to the byline. But when you do have the ball and you've got possession, you need to work it well and work with your teammates and your front men to create those chances. So we'll see. Every chance that he will be given an opportunity tomorrow, and then it's over to him. We've mentioned Dundee. Obviously, Tony Doherty done a great job last year, got a huge win over Rangers, which certainly helped us in terms of the title race, but it's not gone their way so far this time around. I think they've got 1 win in their last 8, which isn't great at all. League-wise, they sit in 8th position and they've got 9 points from their 9 games so far. We spoke at different times, Brydo, towards the end of last season, and you highlighted that 7-1 doing that Celtic gave Dundee at Celtic Park as one of your moments of the season, and specifically, it was the moment at half-time. Celtic went in 6-0 up at half-time, and the place was just electric, really buzzing, and it gave Celtic a real energy. And I think Celtic kicked on to different levels beyond that game. I usually come to you a wee bit later for your scoreline prediction, but do you think it could be a similar performance and result this time around?
Yeah, I do. I do think that they're just Celtic are a bit ruthless when teams are struggling like that, and I think that Dundee will be not really not wanting this fixture right now. Let's be honest. Celtic have also got a lot of competition for places. There's a lot of hunger in that squad. Celtic, we've now got their best player from last season, and Luke McCowan. I think for a club like Dundee to try and replace him and what he done for them is almost impossible with the money we paid for him, and they wouldn't have had all that to spend. So I really think that Celtic will go for the jugular, and I think it could be a heavy win for us. I'm hoping, obviously, there's that. And you touched on that moment last season. That was a big moment for all of us, I think, being at the game. And there's just a surge of energy within every single person, because we were at a period in the season where it was just not going well. Nothing was really going right. And to come out and play that way, and just get to the byline, get the balls across. I think Yang had a really good performance in that game, if I remember right. And just the way that we all want Celtic to play, and it was the first time we'd seen them doing that for a good while. And then the response from the crowd at the end was almost like, look, we know it's been a bit rubbish, but we're all in it together, and we're going to we'll kick on from here. And to be fair, that's exactly what we did.
Yeah, but then, you know, it was such a confidence boosting one at such a key time in the season. Only, just when I'm thinking about the game, the only wee thing that niggles at me now, it was the game where Daniel Kelly scored probably his one and only goal for Celtic, certainly his first goal for Celtic. Good finish coming into the edge of the box, and it just didn't work out. You know, you're always hopeful that a young player's going to come and stay around and show you what he's got for a few years. I generally follow each week now. I take a look at what Mikey Johnson's doing at West Brom, what Rocco Vata's doing at Watford, and what Daniel Kelly's doing at Millwall. And not a lot is the short answer. Mikey Johnson seems to start a few games. The other two boys are getting very limited minutes off the bench. And that's the one disappointment I think of from that game. But in terms of the result in general, absolutely 7-1, massive confidence boost at the time. And I think several folks are predicting something similar this time around. Good to see Quinny in the comments. He's suggesting 5-0 already. And I think there's some similar thoughts elsewhere. Brydo, if you are Dundee, if you are Tony Doc, and as you rightfully say, they don't want this fixture, but what can you do? It's here now. Do you just go and park the bus, or is there any other way to approach it?
I don't know. I mean, Tony Doherty, he certainly got the plaudits last year for the style of play that they had. They didn't really do that wherever they could, of course. I don't know whether I don't know. I've not got enough experience of him as a first-team manager to know that if he's kind of down in his luck, would he change his tactics and his philosophy and whatever else you want to call it? Or will the game just naturally go into that kind of way anyway, because we will dominate the ball and suffocate Dundee until eventually they break? Or will he just say, well, we're not really expecting anything from this game anyway, lads, go and run your hearts out and see what you can get. So sometimes you can go either way. The truth, the answer is, I don't know. Genuinely, I don't know, because I've never really seen him as a first-team manager to know if he would do that. If it was me, I'd be doing everything I could to keep it as low as possible, because the result's going to be a defeat, I think, for them. And if they're already down in their luck a wee bit, would a big, strong, heavy defeat help that? Obviously not. So he might just try and keep a lid on it a wee bit.
Yeah, I think if Tony Doc and his players get back up the road with 2 or 3-0, they'd be okay with that. See, almost the same as what some fans were thinking for Atalanta last week. You know, if you come away without a doing, you can make your peace with it. But you never know. Sometimes when teams get it right, you can pull off big results. So we'll see how it plays out. Brydo, Celtic Exchange, we cover all things Celtic, but I need to just glance up north to the north-east specifically. And another game that's taking place tomorrow night, it's Aberdeen, who are neck and neck with us, top of the table. They take on Rangers at Pittodrie. If you could pick your scoreline, what would you be going for? Does a draw suit best? Do you want to see the Aberdeen win? Do you want to see Rangers win so you can stretch your lead? Where are you at?
No, I'm up. I want Aberdeen to absolutely thump Rangers 5 or 6-0. I genuinely don't care. Honestly, this idea, I mean, it must be undercover Rangers fans and if follow or something that's picking up things and saying that Celtic fans, we want Rangers to win because we're going to a load of garbage. Absolutely. Let's all be realistic. Aberdeen are doing a really, really well, and fair play. We've given them lots and lots and lots of credit on our shows, what we've done, and rightly so. But honestly, for anybody that thinks that they want Rangers to win, they should just go and see the doctor or something, because it's not how we're meant to think as Celtic fans. So Aberdeen, I think, will win, and I think Aberdeen will win. I'm going to say 2-1. I think they'll win 2-1. I think their crowd are up for it. I've been talking about that game for about 3 or 4 weeks to you, and I know a few Aberdeen fans. Like I said, I've spent a bit of time up there, so I've still got pals up there, and they have been buzzing for this game since they started to go on that wee run, and Rangers were struggling. So they smell blood big time, and they love nothing more. Trust me, I've been in that city when Rangers play them and they get a result. They love nothing more than sticking it to them, and I just think that it'll be a proper game, and it'll be one to kind of catch up after our game, obviously, to see how that game plays out. Yeah, definitely. Do you know, there's a serious tension between those two sides, and I think at this moment in time, for the first time in a long time, Aberdeen look to be in as good a shape as they have been, and I think they're doing some great stuff under Jimmy Tilleen. And if they've got any ambitions to do anything this season, whether they really believe they can win the title or not,
they should believe that they can separate Celtic and Rangers, and to do so, you need to beat Rangers at home, and there's a real opportunity to do so. I think, let me see, San Fran Celtic sums it up best when he says, "We are the sheeple," which is what he's got on screen. So you've got to go with that. But I think, you take any sort of Aberdeen win or a draw at worst, and that would leave Celtic in a pretty decent position. But in midweek action, it's obviously games thick and fast, as I mentioned. This is the second of this 4 games in 10 days thing for Celtic. But your final thoughts ahead of Celtic Dundee on Wednesday night?
I think it'll be a strong Celtic performance. I think the competition that a lot of us have been kind of crying out for since last season, for positions, and a number of them, left back, centre half, midfield, even up front. I think that breeds a kind of energy that they need to go and do and carry out a job. It removes complacency, because each player is desperate to play in the semi-finals, they're desperate to play in the cup finals, they're desperate to play in the Champions League. And I think on that, Dundee are going to come across Celtic in a position that they just don't want them to be in, and that is hungry and energetic and ready to take them on. And I never gave you a score. I think it'll be 6-0, to be honest with you. I think Celtic will go with a 6-0 win. And, I think it'll be a good night for Celtic and a good night for Aberdeen.
Yeah, here's hoping. Celtic have kept a number of clean sheets out of those 14 games. I think Pat McLaughlin was asking Celtic's results in the 14 games, and he thought it was 12 wins, a draw and a loss. I think it's 11 wins and 2 draws, because we drew with Aberdeen and we drew with Atalanta and we lost to Dortmund. So I think that's the record. 11 out of 14, not too bad at all. We don't ever need to talk about Dortmund again either, Brydo. That's consigned to the bin for now. But it's a big midweek to look forward to. As you say, huge games on the horizon, but you've got to deal with the here and now, and I think that'll be the message from Brendan Rodgers to the players. So, want to look forward to it on Wednesday night at Celtic Park. Thanks to Brydo for joining me for this one. Thanks to everyone who continues to comment and ask questions on YouTube Live. And likewise, thanks to everyone who continues to listen to the Celtic Exchange podcast. We'll be back with the post-match, the final whistle show for this one on Thursday morning. It's all going to be a bit late coming back from Celtic Park on Wednesday. So back on Thursday morning. So hopefully, big result to talk about. But in the meantime, enjoy your midweek. We'll see you.